Most people remember Landscape for just one song, Einstein A Go-Go. But behind that quirky hit was one of Britain's most innovative bands, one that helped pioneer electronic music years before it became mainstream. Combining jazz musicianship, cutting-edge technology, and a fearless willingness to experiment, Landscape carved out a sound unlike any of their contemporaries. So who were they? And how did such an unconventional band briefly find themselves in the UK charts? Landscape's story began in London during the mid-1970s. At a time when punk was exploding across Britain, 5 highly accomplished musicians were taking a very different path. The band consisted of drummer Richard James Burgess, saxophonist John L. Walters, keyboard player Christopher Heaton, bassist Andy Pask, and trombonist Peter Toms. Rather than following musical trends, they drew inspiration from jazz, funk, electronic music, and experimental composition, creating a style that was both technically demanding and refreshingly original. Their music didn't fit comfortably into any existing scene. They weren't a traditional jazz band, nor were they a rock band. Without a guitarist or conventional frontman, and featuring instruments such as electronically processed trombone and the Lyricon wind synthesizer, Landscape sounded unlike almost anything else performing in London at the time. Finding it difficult to secure regular bookings, the group adopted a fiercely independent approach. They organised their own concerts, built a loyal following through relentless live performances, and even launched their own record label, Event Horizon, to release their earliest recordings. Their growing reputation eventually attracted the attention of RCA Records, who signed the band in 1979. Their self-titled debut album reflected their roots as an instrumental ensemble, blending jazz, funk, and electronic experimentation. Although the album received positive reviews for its originality, it proved difficult to market. The music industry simply wasn't sure where Landscape belonged. Rather than repeating themselves, the band decided to evolve. Richard James Burgess had become fascinated by electronic percussion and computer sequencing, while the band as a whole embraced the latest music technology. They were among the earliest British musicians to use programmable sequencers and electronic drum systems, pushing the boundaries of what electronic music could achieve long before such technology became commonplace. Yet despite these technological advances, Landscape never abandoned the musicianship that had defined them from the beginning. Another major change was equally important. Until then, Landscape had been almost entirely instrumental, but they realized that if they wanted to reach a wider audience, songs with vocals offered new possibilities. Rather than bringing in an outside singer, the band chose to keep everything in-house, with Richard James Burgess taking on most of the lead vocals, while songwriting remained a collaborative effort. The result was their second album, From the Tea Rooms of Mars to the Hellholes of Uranus, released in 1981. It marked a dramatic transformation, combining memorable pop melodies with sophisticated electronic production and the band's unmistakable sense of humour. Around this time, Burgess and John Walters also became early users of the groundbreaking Fairlight CMI, one of the world's first digital sampling workstations. It was another example of Landscape's determination to explore the latest technology in search of new musical possibilities. The first single, European Man, introduced their new direction, but it was the follow-up that would change everything. Einstein A Go-Go became one of the most distinctive hit singles of the early 1980s. Built around an infectious electronic groove, the song told the story of a man convinced he could save the world through science, while cleverly reflecting Cold War anxieties and the threat of nuclear conflict. Even the opening telephone calls to the White House, the Kremlin, and the Iranian embassy switchboard were genuine recordings made by the band. The single climbed to number 5 in the UK charts, giving Landscape their long-awaited commercial breakthrough and introducing them to a much wider audience. Later the same year came Norman Bates, inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's classic thriller Psycho. Blending dark humour with an irresistibly catchy chorus, it became the band's second UK hit and confirmed that Landscape were anything but predictable. At a time when many synthpop acts were writing straightforward love songs, Landscape stood apart by mixing quirky storytelling, intelligent lyrics, and adventurous production with accessible pop music. Despite their success, maintaining that momentum proved difficult. Their third album, Manhattan Boogie-Woogie, arrived in 1982, but failed to produce another major hit. At the same time, changes within RCA Records left the band with less support than they had previously enjoyed. Musical differences also began to emerge, and after the album's release, the original lineup came to an end. 3 members briefly continued as Landscape 3, releasing a handful of more commercially oriented singles before the project was quietly brought to a close. Although Landscape's time in the charts was relatively brief, the careers of its members were only just beginning. Richard James Burgess became one of Britain's most respected producers, working with artists including Adam and the Ants, Spandau Ballet and Kim Wilde, while also helping shape the development of electronic drums and music technology. In 2022, he was appointed a member of the Order of the British Empire, one of the United Kingdom's highest civilian honours, in recognition of his services to music. The other members also enjoyed successful careers as musicians, composers, arrangers and producers, continuing to influence music in different ways, long after Landscape had disappeared from the charts. Landscape are often remembered for Einstein, A Go-Go and Norman Bates, but their contribution reaches much further than 2 memorable hit singles. They combined exceptional musicianship with technological innovation, at a time when electronic music was still finding its place in popular culture. In doing so, they created a sound that remains uniquely their own, and secured a place among the most inventive and original bands to emerge from Britain's early electronic music scene.